Why can't the government use hardened criminals to work on a huge farm? And these criminals, since all they are criminals, they can do more work than an average farm worker would do.
In South Africa, using hardened criminals for farm work is tricky. The main issue is safety. Many prisoners are high risk offenders, and allowing them to work outside the prison could lead to escapes or violence. It would also require significant resources for security, which could be costly. Additionally, there's the question of rehabilitation. Simply having criminals work on a farm without proper rehabilitation could lead to exploitation, which is problematic from a human rights perspective. Public opinion might also be against it. As many would argue, it's unfair to make criminals do hard labor without any real rehabilitation benefits. So while the idea sounds practical, it needs to balance security, rehabilitation, and fairness.
I mean, look at the justice system right now. Criminals in jail, are they getting rehabilitated? Let's be honest, especially hardened criminals. If those people know that they'll be there until they die, say they got a life sentence, they're not gonna be rehabilitated, will they?
You're right in pointing out that many hardened criminals, especially those with life sentences, aren't effectively rehabilitated in South Africa's current prison system. The system tends to focus more on punishment than rehabilitation. Many prisoners, especially serious offenders, don't receive enough programs to help reintegrate them into society or to address the root causes of their crimes. Rehabilitation, like skills training, education, and therapy, is often underfunded and poorly implemented. So, in the case of life sentence prisoners, the reality is that the focus often becomes just keeping them incarcerated rather than working to change their behavior. That said, programs like farm labor could offer practical benefits, but they would need to be coupled with proper rehabilitation efforts to actually be effective. Without that, it risks becoming just another form of labor exploitation rather than a meaningful chance at change.
I mean, come on. Those people, they're not getting rehabilitated anyway. My solution is that since well they are not getting rehabilitated, just throw them in a farm, exploit them, or however you may put them, however you may put it, call it exploitation or not. Just throw them in a farm and get them to work and produce something for the society at large. Why can't you just do that?
I understand your frustration, especially with the current state of rehabilitation for hardened criminals. The idea of putting them to work on a farm and having them contribute to society seems like a practical solution, especially if they aren't getting rehabilitated. The truth is, though, it comes down to a few key issues. First, there's the legal and ethical question. South Africa, like many countries, has laws against forced labor, even in prisons. So while they could work on a farm, it would need to be framed as a rehabilitation or productive program rather than exploitation. Second, while it might sound practical, managing the security of dangerous criminals outside the prison would be challenging. It would require serious investment in monitoring and protection. Lastly, even though they might not be rehabilitated, just putting them to work doesn't address why they committed the crimes in the first place. Without some form of rehabilitation or reintegration plan, it risks becoming a temporary fix rather than a long-term solution. It's a tough balance between practicality and the need to ensure fairness and safety.
But Chad, the rehabilitation is not my aim. I need you to understand that. It is not my aim because the government, in fact, the system as it is right now, it is not rehabilitating them. There is no intention to rehabilitate them. So I just want to get more bank for a buck for our taxpayers. I want them to get benefits of their tax.
I see your point now. You're focused on maximizing the benefits to society and taxpayers, given that the current system isn't effectively rehabilitating prisoners. Your idea is to use their labor to produce something for the economy, like food, and ensure that it benefits the public, especially the poor, rather than keeping them locked up without any contribution. In that case, the main issue would still be managing security and ensuring that the prisoners are contained. But if the government were willing to invest in proper security systems and infrastructure, such a program could potentially benefit society by lowering food production costs or providing surplus to the poor. It's a way to make prisoners contribute to society in a tangible way, even if rehabilitation isn't the goal. It would require careful planning, but it could be a practical solution to get more value from the system.
Exactly. So what's the downside? What's the worst that could happen? Why can't we just do that?
The worst case scenario, if such a system were implemented, revolves around security and human rights issues. First, if prisoners are working outside the prison, there's a serious risk of escape or violence, especially with hardened criminals. That would require significant security investment, which could offset some of the benefits. Second, even if rehabilitation isn't the goal, there could be ethical concerns about exploiting people for labor, which might attract backlash from human rights groups or the public. The perception of punishment might also shift. Some may argue that prisoners deserve more than just hard labor as their punishment. Finally, the effectiveness of the system would depend heavily on the management and oversight of the program. If not well structured, it could lead to exploitation, violence, or poor working conditions, which could actually worsen the problem instead of solving it. In short, while there's potential for societal benefit, the downsides would largely be tied to security risks, ethical concerns, and the complexity of managing such a program.
Please, if you guys can, do donate to my channel. My bank account details are on the screen. As little as 10 rands will really go a long way. And the possibility of perhaps not affording bread and the basics is real. And it's something that I know. And I have experienced that. So, please, do donate. Even as little as 10 rands can go a really long way. Please like the video if you're enjoying it, and comment if you have complaints or anything that you would like to add. Thank you very much.
Can be harsh, and human rights groups often criticize the practice. While this model might seem effective from a purely economic perspective, it comes with significant ethical concerns, including forced labor, exploitation, and poor working conditions. The South African context, with its human rights frameworks and history of labor struggles, would likely make such a system more complicated to implement. There would be public and legal resistance to the idea of forced labor, even if it's framed as a way to reduce costs and help the economy. Does China's approach seem more workable, or do you see different challenges applying to South Africa?
I mean, if I was in charge of making such a project, what I would do is that I would try and explain to the people the end goal and the benefits of it. And it's a matter of focus. The ethical part I understand, and the history I understand very much. But I still don't see how because the history is that, okay, let's talk a bit about history. What happened in history that has made the government to be reluctant in like applying such a solution?
The reluctance to adopt a solution like prison labor for agricultural work in South Africa largely stems from its history of exploitation and forced labor during apartheid. Under apartheid, the government used labor systems that were exploitative, including forced labor camps where black South Africans were used for economic gain with minimal compensation. This created a legacy of mistrust and resistance to labor practices that feel exploitative, even in the case of prisoners. After the end of apartheid, South Africa transitioned into a democratic society with a focus on human rights, which is enshrined in the Constitution. Any program that resembles forced labor could be seen as a return to exploitative practices, even if it's framed as a practical solution. There's also a deep sensitivity around issues of fairness and equality, especially considering the systemic injustices that occurred during apartheid. Because of this history, any suggestion of prison labor must navigate not just ethical concerns, but also public perception and fears of returning to past injustices. The government would need to reassure people that the program isn't just about exploitation, but is a means to benefit society without violating human rights. It's the combination of this painful history, the transition to human rights based policies, and a fear of repeating past wrongs that makes such ideas more controversial. Would you say the benefits of the project could help shift public opinion if framed properly?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to achieve. So, my question is this, right? Um,
I get what you're aiming for. What's your question?
during the apartheid era, what would happen is that black people were basically at the end of the food chain, at the bottom of the chain. Now, I want to create a society whereby the worst people in society are the ones who are at the bottom of the food chain. So it's a matter of focus, because those people who are never going to see the light of day, they have too much energy. They can use that energy to produce something better for all of us. Why not?
Sorry, I'm having issues right now. Our systems are experiencing heavy load. Please try again later.
Okay, maybe my question was a bit complex. Let me ask you this: yes or no? During apartheid, black people were at the bottom of the food chain. Is that true or false?
Yes, that's true. During apartheid, black South Africans were systematically oppressed and placed at the bottom of the social, economic, and political hierarchy.
Yes. So that keep that in mind, okay? I have a question right now. Keep that in mind.
Got it? I'm keeping that in mind. What's your question?
So, when someone goes to jail, they lose certain privileges, right?
Yes, that's correct. When someone is incarcerated, they lose certain freedoms and privileges, such as freedom of movement, the right to work in regular jobs, and access to their usual lifestyle. They're also subject to the rules and structure of the prison system.
Thank you. They are subject to the rules and structure of the prison system. But the government has the power to shift the prison system, right?
Yes, the government has the power to shift or reform the prison system. Changes to the system can be made through legislation, policy adjustments, or new initiatives that align with societal needs, such as rehabilitation programs or labor systems. The government has the authority to redesign how prisons operate, though it must balance reforms with legal, ethical, and practical considerations.
So, can't we make prisoners, for lack of better words, I do not mean it literally, but for lack of better words, they could be sort of our slaves. Because, well, wait, let me try again. Let me try again. Wait, give me a moment, give me a moment. The question is this: during apartheid, black people used to work under very harsh circumstances, and that is why today we have certain laws for the workplace, right? Does that mean?
Yes, that's correct. During apartheid, black South Africans were subjected to exploitative and harsh working conditions, often with little or no rights or protections. This led to the development of labor laws post apartheid to ensure fair treatment, safety, and rights for all workers, as part of efforts to address historical injustices and exploitation.
Yes, and the apartheid economy was a stronger economy in terms of currency, right? Right or wrong? Yes or no?
Yes, that's correct. The economy during apartheid, while unequal, was stronger in terms of the currency and overall economic growth compared to the post apartheid era, though much of that wealth was concentrated in the hands of a few.
So I want a true or false answer right now. Um, Wait, so I want a true or false answer. Give me a moment. Is it reasonable to assume that this current economy is less efficient than the apartheid economy?
True. It's reasonable to assume that the current economy is less efficient than the apartheid economy in terms of certain economic indicators, such as GDP growth and currency strength. However, this is due to the greater focus on equality, social development, and the dismantling of exploitative systems.
Yes,